December 23rd, 1982, Morristown, New Jersey. An 18-year-old high school cheerleader walked out of her job at the mall and vanished into a nightmare. Just 2 weeks later, a 25-year-old recent college grad was abducted and killed in a case that would expose the terrifying pattern of one man's violence and haunt an entire community for decades. What began as two separate disappearances quickly became something far more chilling. A serial predator moving through suburban New Jersey, leaving behind shattered families, a terrified police force, and a case that would later draw in a psychic, forensic evidence, and a courtroom battle over life and death. But behind the headlines were two women with lives, futures, and people who loved them. This is the story of Amie Hoffman and Deirdre O'Brien, and the man who took them, James J. Kotidich. This is the serial killer and the psychic. Hey, y'all, I'm Chris Calvert.
And I'm her husband, Rob Potter. Welcome to Hitch to Homicide.
For better or worse.
Till death do us part.
Welcome back, everybody.
Yes, welcome. And for our friends all the way over there in Valencia.
Valencia?
Yes.
Where's Valencia?
That's in Spain.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Benvinguts.
Very nice. Well, wherever you're listening, be sure to like, rate, and review the podcast. It just takes a second, and it helps other true crime-loving people to find us. And if you're watching us on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button below.
Please do.
If you want true crime with us all the time, all you have to do is go to Facebook, go join the Hitch to Homicide Facebook group called the In-Laws and Outlaws. It's closed.
And we love the outlaws.
It's a closed group. You'll have to answer a couple questions to get in. Go join.
Please do.
You can find us on Instagram at Hitch to Homicide or on X at H2H_podcast. And we also have a Buy Me a Coffee link where you can send Rob some coffee.
Preferably Pete's.
And you can also send us a message or a text, and that link is at the bottom of the show notes.
Yes.
Well, this is a really interesting case where a psychic is used to help solve the murders of two bright and beautiful young women. Now, there are those who are skeptical of this, but we're going to cover all of that as well. We're going to cover every single bit of it, who believed, who didn't believe, what actually happened, what was actually said.
Yeah.
There's a lot to it.
Okay.
Before we get started, let me thank some sources.
Thank you.
Thank you very much to the sources. The State of New Jersey versus Kotidich, Wikipedia, the New York Times, UPI, the Daily Record, the Skeptical Inquirer, NorthJersey.com, News 12, Murderpedia, the Biography Channels, Psychic Investigators, and many, many others. They will all be listed in the show notes.
All right. Well, you ready?
I am.
Let's do it.
James Gerald Kotidich, it's Polish,
Okay.
in case you were wondering, was born on June 12th, 1948 in Morristown, New Jersey, to Julia and John Kotidich. He grew up with three other brothers, John Jr., Michael, and Jeffrey. There's not a whole lot known about his childhood. There are accounts that say his father was physically abusive toward his mom. He would beat, kick, and slap her. In 1956, when James is 8 years old, his father beats his mother so badly she's hospitalized. And after this, his father, John, leaves the family and just begins a relationship with another woman, whole nother life.
So it's just a matter of convenience for him.
I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I feel bad for the woman he went to. Leopards don't usually change their spots.
No.
But James's mother, Julia, raised the four boys on her own, working 3 jobs. Now, she's eventually going to remarry.
Okay.
In March of 1963, James is sentenced and sent away to reform school for assault in Morris County. He's 14 years old. When he's 15, he and a fellow reform school mate named Frank Dawson, they escape from Annandale Reformatory after slugging a guard with a wrench and forcing him to accompany them in a stolen truck to Hackettstown. They were actually loading a refuse truck at the school's piggery, at the reform school's piggery.
What's a piggery?
I have no idea, but I'm assuming that's where the pigs are,
Yeah,
right?
It's a pig farm, I guess.
It must have been like a self-sustaining reform school.
Yeah.
But they free the guard and they abandon the truck. They fled to a house at 119 Water Street in Hackettstown, and when the police discover where they are, these two warn the police. The police show up and they're like, "Come out with your hands up." This was actually in the newspaper. "Come out with your hands up." And the boys yelled back that they wouldn't be taken alive and fired a shot from a .22 rifle through the door.
Wow.
So they call Frank Dawson's father. Because these are younger guys, right?
We're going to call your parents.
Yes. And Frank Dawson's dad shows up, and he goes inside while the police gather outside with a bunch of state troopers. They're ready to have a shootout. He's going to try to convince his son and James to surrender. Now, James is a kid who's going to get in trouble a lot as a teen. By the way, he does surrender. They do surrender.
Okay.
And they're taken straight back to reform school. But at some point during his high school years, James went out with a girl. Her last name was Cato. I believe her name is Pam. But he's going to spend at least a little time in the Cato household.
Okay.
When he's 19, in 1967, he's detained by police for unlawfully using a dangerous weapon, and he gets a 1-year prison sentence for it. And while he's in prison, he is charged with assault and battery on William Miles, who's one of the correction officers. Almost called him Miles William. William Miles.
Okay.
But he beats up a correction officer. On May 7th, 1968, he attacked William Miles, beating him with his fists after Miles warned him that he was going to file a disciplinary complaint for a breach of the institution's regulations. "You're breaking the rules. I'm writing you up."
Yep.
And the corrections officer needed 25 stitches in his face.
Good Lord.
Because James smashed the man's glasses against his face when he punched him. Later, there will be insufficient evidence to convict James of assault and battery, who's now 21 years old in 1969.
Wait. So he smashed his glasses into his face. He has 25 stitches, and they don't have any proof?
Well, they're just saying there's not enough for assault and battery. So he's going to be charged with simple assault, and he does plead guilty to that.
Wow. Okay.
Over the next couple of years after he's released in 1968, he's picked up again for more petty crimes, like in December of 1970 when he's indicted for contributing to the delinquency of minors, 2 teenage boys, aiding and abetting in the larceny of a motor vehicle and receiving a stolen auto in Morristown, New Jersey. So he's got these kids like stealing cars for him and breaking them to him.
Wow.
Then by 1971, he's had enough of New Jersey and he moves to Florida, Surfside, Florida. But on June 7th, 1971, James is arrested, get this, for armed robbery in Tampa.
Wow.
He and another man rob a milk truck driver. I can remember when the guy delivered milk. The Southern Belle guy delivered milk to our front porch. We had like a little box, that you put the milk and sour cream or whatever dairy product it was. It sat on the front porch.
Yeah. We lived way out in the country, so we just had a cow. Wait, so they robbed a milk truck. I mean,
a milk truck driver.
So what'd they do? Did they rip him off like cartons of milk or what?
No. They rob Wayne Carter, who's 40 years old.
Okay.
They snatched his wallet
okay.
as he was delivering milk to the Handy Food Market in Tampa on 16th Street.
I can just see it. All right, hold him up. Give me all your ice cream.
Well, maybe. The wallet was attached to his belt with a chain, but the chain broke. They did get all of his money. All of it was totaling $40.
Okay.
Now, I don't know who the other guy was. Couldn't find that anywhere. But James is caught and arrested. But he's taken to Jackson Memorial Hospital, where he's being treated for a drug addiction. And I also read a self-inflicted wound that he gives to himself in jail. Like, I don't want to be in jail. I'm going to hurt myself. I'd rather be at the hospital.
Gotcha.
He escapes from the hospital by sawing off a leg shackle while he's awaiting trial, and goes to live with a man named Robert J. Anderson. Now, how they know each other, I have no idea, but Robert is 40 and James is 22.
Gotcha.
6 days later, on June 13th, 1971, James strangles 41-year-old Robert Anderson, strangles him to death after they had a fight, and Robert threatened to turn him in.
Does James have an anger issue here?
He's got issues, more issues than Vogue. Wow. He's got lots of issues, right?
Yeah.
He'd only been living with Robert at Surfside 6 Apartments on Harding Avenue since his escape, and that's according to the Miami Herald. I thought maybe he was his roommate before, but then when I read the Miami Herald article, it was like, no, he'd only been there like 6 days, and they couldn't get along. Yeah. So police get a tip on a possible murder, and when they knock on apartment 3A, nobody answers. But the apartment manager opens the door for the police, and they find it's chain locked from the inside. But then James bolts out the door as Sergeant Jack Cole was reaching in to undo the lock. And Sergeant Cole and his partner Joe Nelson each shoot at James, hitting him in the left buttock.
Ouch.
Made me think of Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
But the other shots went through the ceiling, hitting the second-floor tenant, Mrs. Lenora Saw, on the right arm and the forehead. Come on, guys. How are you shooting through the ceiling if he's running out the front door? That part I didn't get.
Good
Hope
Lord.
Miss Lenora Saw was okay.
Wow.
James ran only about 300 feet before he fell on the street.
Yeah.
Police found Robert Anderson in his pajamas, strangled to death, and stuffed in a closet under a pile of clothes. So James is arrested again, and he's convicted of second-degree murder and given a 20-year sentence and sent to the Florida State Prison in Rayford, where he's going to spend the next 11 years. But it's not long after he's in this Florida prison that he fatally stabs his roommate, Jerry Kent Barber, on September 4th, 1973.
Wow.
Jerry was in the Florida prison for kidnapping. He's serving a 12-year sentence, but James is never going to be charged with Jerry's murder because it will be ruled that it is self-defense. Apparently, Jerry, who's serving these 12 years for kidnapping, is James's cellmate, and Jerry threatened James with a razor blade. So James grabbed Jerry by the neck and kept squeezing until he was unconscious. Well, he kept squeezing until he was dead.
Yeah, yeah.
Jerry Barber was pronounced dead at the scene, but because it was self-defense, it was, quote, justifiable homicide, end quote.
Okay.
9 years later, James is released in August of 1982. So he doesn't serve his full 20 years. He's out on parole, and he moves back to New Jersey.
Okay.
Hold that thought.
Holding.
Amie Hoffman was born on October 21st, 1964 in South Korea. She comes to the United States in 1969 when she is 5 years old. She's adopted by Frank and Florence Hoffman. Okay. She's a beautiful girl. She also has 2 sisters, Bobby and Kelly. And her dad, Frank, was a World War II vet where he was an airplane mechanic in the U.S. Army Air Corps.
Your dad was an airplane mechanic in the Air Force.
In the Air Force, yeah. He was. Yeah. In the fall of 1982, she's a senior at Parsippany Hills High School in Parsippany, New Jersey, in Morris County. She's a standout senior. She's beautiful. She's smart. She's also a cheerleader. She had loads of friends. She's very sociable. It's her senior year. It's always that special time. It's, when you have the last of all the high school things, right?
Right.
This is the last football game. This is the last homecoming. This is the last prom, right?
Right.
And Amie's very popular. And in addition to being a cheerleader, she worked part-time at the Surprise store in Morris County Mall in Cedar Knolls, New Jersey. She's a salesperson, part-time.
Okay. All right.
And apparently there was a Surprise store for women on one side of the mall, and across the way was the Surprise store for the men. Now, on Sunday, November 21st, 1982, Amie woke up at 10:30 a.m., and at 12:30, her childhood friend and fellow cheerleader, Karen Speak, came over and drove Amie to this fellow student's home, Timothy Day, where a group of friends are gathered together and they're all watching a football game.
Okay.
Now, when it's over, Tim drove his friends to the Rainbow Lakes Firehouse in Intervale, where they all had a spaghetti dinner in honor of the school's cheerleaders and football players.
Okay.
Now, I've seen this happen before in small towns. I didn't know they did it like in New Jersey, where the team and the coaches and the cheerleaders all get together and have dinner over the weekend each week because they're playing ball that week.
Sure. Okay.
Now, while at the firehouse, Karen has some sort of accident that I believed required stitches. So she's heading to the emergency room, and Amie went with Karen and Karen's mom to the hospital. And they are there for about 90 minutes. And then Amie went back to Karen's house and stayed there until about 11 p.m. when another friend and classmate who's been at the same spaghetti dinner drives her home. The next morning, Monday, November 22nd, 1982, Amie wakes up early, but she didn't go to school because she didn't feel well. And Amie and her mother spent most of the day talking, and that evening they visited some close family friends, the Weavers. Then on Tuesday, November 23rd, 1982, Amie still felt bad, so she didn't go to school right away that morning. Instead, she slept in late, and after chatting with her mom, Amie went to school and had lunch with her friend, Karen Speak. And Amie then went with Karen to a dentist's appointment in Denville. And the girls returned to school at 2:30 p.m. because they had cheerleading practice that afternoon.
All right.
Now, speaking of cheer practice, something strange had been happening. There was a payphone outside the cheerleaders' locker room, which I thought was funny because, of course, it's 1982. There's no cell phone.
Right.
And Amie's friend Karen Speak would answer the phone when it rang, and more often than not, it would be an obscene phone call. And this guy, he was always asking for one cheerleader in particular, a girl named Beth Thomas. He never asked for Amie, okay? He's only asking for Beth Thomas,
right,
but he's calling and breathing heavy and being obscene.
Sure.
Something else that folks are going to think is strange and wrong, one of the part-time assistant football coaches was a young man named Kevin Sheehan, and allegedly, he was having unchaperoned parties with these high school kids where alcohol was served. And he drove a little sports car. I believe it was a Datsun 280Z.
Oh, my favorite car. I had a Datsun 280Z in 1975.
Well, when I read that, I was like, Rob's going to be like, I had that car.
It was my favorite car, and unfortunately, I was headed somewhere, and an elderly woman had a stroke and went left of center and hit me head on and destroyed the car.
I'm just glad you're still around.
Yeah, it's sort of like when people say, hey, it's good to see you. And I always say, it's good to be seen.
It's good to be seen.
Yeah.
Cheer practice ended about 4:45 p.m. on Tuesday, November 23rd. Karen Ursek, whose locker was next to Amie's, noticed that Amie was wearing purple underwear, a brownish purple sweater, a plaid skirt, and cowboy boots. And Amie dressed quickly after cheer practice and left about 5:05 p.m. for her part-time job at the Surprise store for women at the Morris County Mall.
Okay.
Now, according to Christine Gonzalez, who worked at the Companion Surprise store for men, Amie arrived at work shortly after 5. Amie took a dinner break after 8 p.m. No later than 8:30, she went to McDonald's. She ordered a Coke, French fries, and chicken McNuggets.
Nice.
and Barbara Horvath, an employee of the neighboring Kodak Jewelers who regularly used the Surprise store's restroom, saw Amie eating the French fries at 8:15 p.m.
Okay.
Christine saw Amie again at 9:20 when she helped Amie close the women's store, and Amie returned the favor at the men's store. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, and if you've never worked retail, you have these big gates that come down, and you have to start with a hook, and then you get it down, and then sometimes they're heavy.
Yep.
So I can see where it took both of these girls to close one store and then close the other one.
Gotcha.
Christine needed a ride home that evening, but Amie didn't offer her a ride because her mother was going to give her a perm that night. Her mom was giving her a home perm.
It's
the
80s. Yep.
The girls left the mall at about 9:35 p.m. with Amie still wearing the same brown purple sweater, the plaid skirt, and the cowboy boots.
Okay.
She's also carrying her backpack, a book bag. At the mall exit, Christine said goodnight to Amie and turned right while Amie turned straight back through the empty parking lot and starts walking toward her car. Now, Barbara Horvath left the Kodak Jewelers a few minutes earlier than Amie had left the Surprise store in the mall. And like Amie, she walked out of the mall exit straight to the back of the parking lot. And she walked with 3 other employees, and they sort of gradually split up until she was all by herself with just one colleague, a girl named Debbie McLean, and they stopped to chat for about 5 minutes. And while they're talking, Barbara noticed in front of them was a greenish blue vehicle with a vinyl roof, and what she described as putty marks on the driver's side. So I can only imagine that's Bondo, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The driver's side window was down about 4 inches, and she could see the driver in profile. She said his eyes were dark, his hair was light colored blonde, curly hair, and his nose was pointy. At one point, the man turned toward them. Barbara could see dark markings on the side of his nose and under his eyes. She said his nose was, quote, prominent. His hair was shoulder length, and she saw, quote, gold around the collar, end quote. It's James Kotadich,
Okay.
and he's watching these girls in the dark parking lot as they're leaving their jobs at the mall.
Jeez.
Barbara says goodbye to Debbie McLean, then walked past the car with the creepy dude inside, and she saw 6 rear lights, 3 on each side, and identified the car as a Chevy, similar to her sister's Chevy Bel Air.
Okay.
She gets into her car, drives down toward the mall, and as she leaves, she can see Amie walking, quote, up the parking lot toward her car. Now, James, who seems to have a thing for Asian American women, grabs Amie and throws her into his car. He drives her to the old Medham Waterworks in Randolph Township, New Jersey. It's on Combs Hollow Road, which is about 100 yards to the west of this dirt road, this dirt service road that he takes, which leads to the holding tanks.
Okay.
There, he rapes and stabs Amie to death.
Jeez.
She will have an open gash on her head, an L-shaped wound on her right shoulder, a laceration at the base of her nose, a severed left ear with a deep wound extending to the spinal column,
Good
and
grief.
2 severe chest wounds, one 4.5 inches deep and one more than 7 inches deep that passed through her lungs to the back between the 9th and 10th ribs.
Holy cow.
Now, the 7-inch deep wound is the fatal one, and she bled to death. He tosses her into the center concrete holding tank, gets in his car, and drives away.
Wow.
Amie's mom is expecting her home around 9:45 that night, and when Amie didn't come home and she didn't call, her mother got in the car, drove to the mall, and started looking for Amie. And she gets there about 10:30 p.m., and she sees Amie's car sitting alone in the parking lot. And the door is open, the keys are in the ignition, Amie's jacket and her purse with her wallet and her book bag are inside the car. Florence Hoffman, Amie's mom, calls the police, and patrolman William Plate from Hanover Township responds with his dog. He's a canine unit.
Okay.
He brings his dog, Baron, to investigate what they think is a possible missing person. Mm-hmm. And Officer Plate met Florence at Amie's car and tried to get a track with his dog, Baron, and Baron tracked about 2 parking spaces from Amie's car and then stopped because he lost the scent there.
Sure.
They file a missing persons report, and it's not long before everyone at school knows that Amie didn't come home the night before, and these kids got into their cars and just started driving around town looking for their friend Amie. And the police departments from across the region actually get involved in the search for Amie. And not too many miles away, maybe 20, in Mount Olive, New Jersey, a woman named Nancy Weber, who is a psychic, gets a phone call. The woman tells Nancy her daughter had a best friend who worked at the Morris County Mall and that she was missing. She didn't come home. And this is when Nancy gets a vision. Quote, "The image I kept having was this naked body, multiple wounds all over. She was lying in water, raped. She had been terribly, terribly violated before she was murdered. And so I just went right into saying to her, I'm sorry, I really can't discuss this with you. You can call Amie's parents or you can call the police that are involved," end quote. Now, the next day is Thanksgiving Day, and a couple is walking their dog through the woods near the water reservoir in Randolph, New Jersey. It's a very isolated area. They come across a body floating in the water in a concrete holding tank in the Medham Borough. And there were numerous slashes and stab wounds to her body, and some of them seemed to be post-mortem after she was already dead. So Nancy Weber's vision was very accurate, and a detective with the Mount Olive Police named Bill Hughes, who was a friend to Nancy, he drops by her house for a cup of coffee after they discover this body on Thanksgiving. Okay. And I think Nancy knew why Bill was there, but she didn't offer up any help. She waited for him to ask her, and he did. And Nancy told him that she was worried that whoever this killer was, he was going to strike again. She says to him, he's killed before, he's killing again, and he's going to kill more. Wow. Now, I want to stop and say I did read in one source that Captain Jim Moore actually contacted Nancy first and not Bill. But hang on, we're going to talk about that.
All right.
And Nancy, the psychic, is right. Nancy Weber's right, because 12 days after James has abducted Amie, he's on the hunt again. Deirdre Ellen O'Brien was born on August 29th, 1957, in New York to James and Georgia O'Brien. Her mother was from New York, the Bronx, actually. Okay. And her father was a second lieutenant during the Korean War. Her parents are of Irish descent. And Deirdre has 3 siblings, James, Maureen, and Aaron. I was going to say Ellen, Aaron. Deirdre is a very talented artist, and she actually graduated from Seton Hall University with a degree in art history. She wanted to be a museum curator.
Gotcha.
In 1982, she's 25 years old and living at home with her parents and working as a waitress at the Library Restaurant in Morris County, New Jersey. We used to have a library lounge when I was in college.
Oh, yeah?
And you could tell your parents, where are you going? Going to the library.
Nice.
They called it the library lounge because it had bookshelves all around it, and there were books everywhere.
Right.
And now I don't know what it is. I passed by there the other day going through Kentucky's campus, which is so much bigger and just everywhere now. It was so much smaller when I went to school there.
Sure.
Oh, so many years ago.
I know.
Go Big Blue.
I know.
On the morning of December 5th, just after midnight, Deirdre finishes her shift. She gets in her car to drive home to her parents' place. But James has other plans. Around 2 a.m., while driving his green Chevy sedan, he forces Deirdre off the road while she's driving in Morris Township. Then he snatches her from her car at knife point and drives her to an I-80 rest stop in Alamuchee, New Jersey. I wanted to make sure I got it right. He sexually assaults Deirdre, then he stabs her in the chest multiple times, but there's a truck parked ahead of James's car. And he gets kind of spooked. I don't know if it's that he doesn't see it right away, it's too dark, but eventually he sees that he's raping and killing this girl very, very close to this 18-wheeler.
Right.
He gets spooked when he finally sees the truck, and he dumps Deirdre out on the pavement, and he just drives away.
Jeez.
But she is still alive.
Wow.
She drags herself on her stomach and her hands and knees and bangs on the door of this sleeping truck driver. And the man answers. And since there are no cell phones, he gets on, what do you think?
His CB radio.
His CB radio.
Yep.
And he tells everyone that's listening he needs an ambulance. He needs the police. That she's bleeding, quote, very, very badly, end quote.
Jeez.
She's nude, so he wraps her in a sleeping bag. And Deirdre gives him a message to tell her parents. She thanks this trucker for helping her, for trying to save her. And he does try to help Deirdre as much as he can. He listens to her tell him what happened to her in the car, and she gives a description of her attacker. But she will die in this truck driver's arms while they wait for the ambulance.
Oh, man.
Now, I did try to find this man's name, but it's not in any of the public sources that I could find.
Okay.
Now, this rest area where Deirdre dies, where James has dumped her, is 16 miles from where Amie's body is found.
All right.
There have been 2 murders now in one little New Jersey county. It's a place where this kind of stuff just didn't happen in 1982.
Right.
And people were scared to death. The women were so afraid they were carrying around baseball bats. Sheriffs sent out warnings, and parents were told not to let their children go anywhere at night. Don't let your daughters drive at night.
Right.
They told them, don't allow your daughters to wear their cheerleading jackets in public. Nothing that would identify them as a cheerleader.
Right.
And the police realized, we've got a serial killer on our hands.
Yeah.
But other than what Deirdre has told them, and what Barbara Horvath, the woman who worked at the jewelry store at the mall, about the creepy guy in the blue-green sedan, the police have basically nothing. It's 1982. DNA testing isn't readily available, even though he's raped these girls,
Sure.
right?
Right.
But Officer Bill Hughes knows that Nancy could do something. She might know something. And in fact, before forensics are done on both girls, Nancy tells him that they were sexually assaulted. And Officer Hughes is convinced that Nancy needed to be involved in this case, but he needs to get somebody who will hear him out and not poo-poo the idea of using a psychic.
Sure.
So he goes to a veteran officer, Captain Jimmy Hughes. Now, in a couple of sources, it said that Jimmy Hughes went to Nancy first. I don't know who went to her first.
Right.
But Captain Hughes is in charge of the detectives in Parsippany, New Jersey, and Amie Hoffman was from the same town. And Hughes had never used a psychic, and he's a little skeptical, but Bill is telling him if she can even give us just a little bit of information that could be helpful, because they really didn't have any leads.
Yeah, they got no clues at this point.
So Captain Jimmy Moore and Bill go back to Nancy's home, and Bill wants her to tell Jimmy what she told him. And Nancy tells him that she read in the newspaper the account of Amie and says the paper was wrong, that Amie had been raped, and she knew it. So the paper said that there were no visible signs of sexual assault, right? Well, how do you have visible signs of sexual assault?
Yeah.
When they ask her how she does her psychic thing, like, how do you do this? She tells them that she just sees it. Quote, all I can do is tell you what I see, end quote.
Right.
And she doesn't want the police to tell her anything about the case. She wants 0 leads. So they decide they're going to take Nancy to the scenes of the abductions and the murder scenes where the bodies are found. Quote, I was driving with Bill and Jimmy in the car the first day when we went down a road. I could feel I was coming towards the end of her life. It was as if the energy of the road itself got darker and darker, more magnetically charged, with an energy that felt more panicky, with heightened anxiety, end quote.
Interesting.
Now, the police are just taking her to the area, and even though Amie could have been left behind anywhere on the 12 acres where this reservoir are in this area, Nancy walks right to the spot where Amie's body is found in this tank. Quote, I felt almost as if Amie was waiting for me there on the ground. So I got down on the ground on my knees, and I could feel no separation between the memory of what Amie went through and myself at that point. I began to speak words I believed were the last words that she was saying. She was begging, please don't kill me. I believe she knew that's what he was about by then.
Jeez.
She had already been raped. She had already been badly cut. And I believe she understood that he was enjoying this, and she didn't know how to get through to him. She had no idea how to get through to this person who seemed bent on destroying her. For me, it was very important to stay with it because I'm looking for the tiniest bit of a clue, a shred of evidence that might stop him. End quote.
Wow.
Nancy tells Jimmy and Bill he's of Polish descent and he grew up in Morristown. He was in Florida and he was in jail there for murder.
She's telling them this?
Yes,
wow.
She's telling him this.
Jeez.
She says he was in jail for murder. They let him out early. He got early parole. And she gives them the name James. And she even tries the last name, saying it starts with a K and ends in itch.
Wow.
And she tells him this guy is sick and he's going to just keep killing until he's caught. And Nancy's really upset about this. She couldn't emphasize enough that he was a sick guy who's going to just keep on killing.
Right.
It wasn't a crime of passion. He had an obsession with the joy that causing harm brought to other people.
Man.
They take Nancy to the scenes of the second murder of Deirdre O'Brien. They take her to the rest area where the rape and stabbing took place. And again, Nancy goes right to the spot where James's car had been parked. Quote, I see this truck in my mind, and I see a trucker, and I see this woman coming out of a speeding car. She's naked, she's knifed, and I'm looking at the car, and I'm looking at, it's the same car. It's James. I know it. End quote.
Man, it sounds like she's nailing it.
She is kind of nailing it. We're going to talk about this a little bit later, though. Okay?
All right.
Nancy felt that this James guy had enough. He was worried about this trucker. He didn't want to be bothered with this girl anymore, so he stabbed her and threw her out of the car, and then he drove off. And that's when Deirdre had the strength somehow to pick herself up and go to the truck to knock on the door, getting help from the truck driver. And again, the truck driver gets on his CB, he radios for help, and troopers eventually got there, and again, Deirdre passed away in the arms of the truck driver. And she knows this. She tells them this.
Wow.
And both James and Bill are very impressed with Nancy's knowledge, telling them things she couldn't possibly know. Then over the next few days, Nancy keeps replaying the visions she's had at both locations over and over in her head. And every time she comes up with the name James, and each time she replays this movie over in her head, she would get just a little bit more information. She said he was at least 5'10". He's very skinny with a thin, long nose and dark eyes. Oh. And what did Barbara Horvath tell the police?
The exact same thing.
Skinny nose, dark eyes.
Yeah.
Then Nancy goes back again into these visions of the nights that these murders take place, and she could feel the car and his brother, James's brother, at a gas station. And she tells the police, the brother owns the car. That's where he got the car, from his brother, at a gas station. And she tells the police the killer's local. And she tells them that they all know who he is, that he was a local terror growing up, and all the cops knew him.
Wow.
She tells them that this guy was even dangerous in high school. Now, at this point, these officers want permission and a blessing from the county prosecutor to officially involve Nancy in the investigation. But before they can even state their case, why, they're denied. They're denied access to this DA's office. The DA isn't interested in listening to a psychic. And their investigation is basically stopped in its tracks. There's nothing more that these two officers can do. But Nancy knows another young woman is going to die at the hands of James. She calls in some of her students who she really trusts, and they formed, get this, a psychic circle. These folks together, they use psychic prayer to try and stop this killer.
Really?
So Nancy tells them everything she's seen about this guy, James, and then these people all join hands. Quote, I told them, join hands with me. So we went to the light, we went to the Godhead, we went to the apex, and through that asked if it was in the spiritual path of all concerned to bring back to James K. the pain he has given and the suffering he has caused. Let him feel that. End quote.
Wow, I'd never heard of anything like that before.
Me either.
Wow.
Me either.
It'd be interesting to. We have a psychic medium friend, Catherine.
I need to ask Catherine about this.
Ask her about that and see what the deal is. Yeah.
At 11:20 p.m. on January 16th, 1983, patrolman Kevin Dormer responds to a call from 44 Harrison Street in Morristown, New Jersey. He goes into the house. The patrolman Dormer sees James Kotidich leaning against the kitchen table. His T-shirt is rolled up, and his mom, Julia Baldwin, is washing a wound on James's back. James tells the police that he had been driving home on Route 24 when he was pulled over by a car with a flashing blue light, and that the driver of the car had stabbed him. James was taken by ambulance, unaccompanied by police, to Morristown Memorial Hospital. Sergeant Percalis, who also responded to the call, instructed police officers on the scene to secure James's clothing and his car as possible evidence leading to the arrest of his alleged assailant. But while they're at the scene at James's home, one of the officers sees this green Chevy sitting in the driveway.
Oh, no.
Kind of matches the description of the car they'd been looking for.
Yeah.
And due to the similarities between the alleged attack on James, he's been stabbed, and Deirdre O'Brien and Amie Hoffman murders, they were also stabbed. Detective John Kinnecom of the Morris County Sheriff's Division of Criminal Investigation, who was also investigating the O'Brien murder, was called into the police garage. We want you to look at this car. On January 17th, 1983. They're like, you got to come look at this car. We want you to supervise the collection of the evidence, anything that's relating to James being stabbed. And when Detective Kinnecom inspected James's car, he realized that its tread pattern was similar to the impressions they found at the scene of Deirdre O'Brien's abduction.
Yeah. Well, and two, there had to have been blood inside that car.
You think?
Yeah.
A comparison of the tire tread on James's car with a sketch and a photograph of the track at the scene of Deirdre's abduction confirmed Detective Kinnecom's suspicion. So this detective notifies the prosecutor's office and the state police, and a search warrant is obtained for James Kotidich's 1970 Chevrolet. And police removed the tire. They take the car to the state police laboratory in Little Falls for extraction of possible fiber and foam evidence. The seat cover was removed and the interior was vacuumed. And laboratory personnel also removed samples of the car's carpet. The seat cover and carpet were taken to the FBI lab in Washington, D.C. for analysis.
Okay, they're bringing the big guns in.
Big guns coming in.
Yep.
Big. On January 19th, 1983, police arrest James Kotidich for the murder of Deirdre O'Brien. The state didn't charge James with the murder of Amie Hoffman. Not yet. Not until December 15th of 1983.
Okay.
Now, during the interval between James' arrest for Deirdre's murder and his indictment for Amie's murder, the community is questioning why an arrest in Amie Hoffman's case was taking so long. It took a whole year.
Right.
And the prosecutor's office says, we're waiting for forensic evidence. We need to know what has happened. So we're waiting for forensic evidence on this.
Okay.
And what they do discover is that she actually had been raped. And the reason I told you her whole day, like a couple of days leading up to when she's abducted, is because the state is going to try to say that that's not James's semen. She was with another boy.
Okay.
So they go through her whole day. We know exactly where she was and what she was doing, and she was not with another man.
Okay.
When Jimmy and Bill find out who he is, they couldn't get over how accurate Nancy had been about James Kotidich. Now remember, Nancy said Amie had been raped, brutally raped, and when the forensic came back, she's right. So here's how this is going to go down. James is first arrested on January 19th, 1983 for the murder of Deirdre O'Brien, the second girl, but after all the forensic testing and investigation, he's also charged with Amie Hoffman's murder a year later, which everybody was upset about, but they do charge him.
Okay.
But Amie's trial is going to go, her case is going to go to trial first. It's going to happen first.
Okay.
James's attorney will try to get the trial moved several times because James has murdered two beautiful young ladies in a very short period of time in a small New Jersey area, Morristown. He doesn't think he can get a fair trial for his client. But Judge Arnold Stein says, nah, we're good. We're good right here.
Yeah.
We're just going to do it right here.
This will work.
Nah, it's okay. It's okay.
It's all good.
On October 9th, 1984, James Kotidich goes on trial for the murder of Amie Hoffman. And the prosecution's case is all about the facts surrounding the disappearance of Amie and the discovery of her body, Amie's activities leading up to the date of her abduction, because they had this forensic evidence that say she's been raped, and they don't want the defense to be able to say that she'd had sex prior to being abducted by James, just like I just said to you.
Right.
And the likeness of James's car and the descriptions given by various witnesses, as well as the fiber and foam of the interior of James's car matching that found on Amie's clothes and her boots. The defense, which was led by public defender James Kinney, is going to say that there were descriptions of James that were wrong, notably that he was blonde and had a beard or a mustache, and they're going to say that James's alibi should clear him, because he was home playing video games that night.
Okay, whatever.
And that the fiber and foam proved nothing. And that there was evidence that the murder had been committed by the part-time assistant football coach at the high school.
What?
Kevin Sheehan.
Oh, jeez.
And I think they're basing this on rumors and the fact that Kevin drove a little sports car. Because after they find Amie's body, they start asking the neighbors around, and this woman said, I heard a sports car pull through late that night. And so they're thinking, well, you heard a sports car speeding through the area, and this guy drives a Datsun 280Z, but Kevin had his own alibi for the night, and the judge didn't allow any of this. It was all inadmissible. Can you imagine being that young coach?
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
No, not at all. Wow.
Our hearts go out to you.
Yeah.
Some interesting people were called to the witness stand during this trial, namely two women, Helen Cato and Diana Bossard. Helen Cato testifies via videotaped deposition that on a Monday in mid-November 1982, after visiting a sick friend, she stopped at the Morris County Mall at about 3 p.m. to do some shopping. She remembered it was a Monday because she visited that friend each day of the week, but always on Monday.
Okay.
She said it was a very sunny day. She had parked her car and was sitting in her car smoking a cigarette and listening to the radio when she heard a loud voice. She saw a man and a young woman walking from the mall toward her vehicle, and she recognized the young woman as Amie Hoffman, a cashier at the Surprise store and a cheerleader at the local high school.
Okay.
The man, she said, was James Kotidich, who was in the room with Mrs. Cato when the deposition was taken. The man had a face, quote, like a hawk, end quote. He was wearing blue and white sneakers, blue jeans, and a denim jacket. He looked familiar to Helen, and she later placed him as a young man who had been to her house with her teenage daughter in the early 1960s.
Good grief.
And the man and woman approached her car. Helen heard him say loudly, he's shouting at Amie, quote, come here, damn it. I said come here, I'll kill you, end quote.
Wow.
And the woman was unresponsive, meaning Amie. Amie was unresponsive at first, but then she became flustered. She dropped the books she was carrying. She picked them up, she stumbled, and then she ran away from James. So this shows that James had been stalking Amie. He's been bothering her. But it gets better.
Okay.
Because Diane Bossard takes the stand to say, in October, just 1 month prior to Amie's murder, she had stopped at the Morris County Mall to do some clothes shopping for a planned November 1st vacation. And once in the mall, she looked for clothes in Bradley's, the Fashion Bug, and finally, the Surprise Store. And after she entered the Surprise Store at 8:45 p.m., she walked to the back of the store and saw a, quote, young Asian girl with long hair being talked to in a loud voice by an unkempt-looking older man, end quote.
Gee, who was that?
Yeah. The man who was tall with dirty blonde hair, a thin face with high cheekbones, and several days' growth of beard was speaking in a loud voice about dirt bikes. But the girl, Amie, was not taking part in the conversation. And after several minutes in the store, Diana left without buying anything. But she identified the girl as Amie Hoffman and the man as James Kotidich. So he's harassed her in the parking lot, and he's come into the store and harassed her there. The defense parades in mostly James's relatives to vouch for his whereabouts on the night of Amie's murder. And there was a lot of discussion about James's beard, whether he had one, whether he was growing one out, or if he had a mustache, because the defense is trying to say all these people who say they saw him, they all have slightly different descriptions of him.
Right.
Of him and his beard. So it couldn't be him. The defense moved for a mistrial, but they were
denied.
Yeah. On October 25th, 1984, the jury is given the case. Just a day later, on October 26th, the jury returned a verdict of guilty on all counts, namely of knowing and purposeful murder, of killing in the course of committing kidnapping or aggravated sexual assault of kidnapping, of aggravated assault, and of possession of a dangerous weapon for an unlawful purpose.
That pretty much covers it all.
They soup to nuts, right?
Yeah.
He is sentenced. They sentenced James Kotidich to death by lethal injection.
Good.
Then James is tried and convicted in 1984 for the kidnapping and murder of Deirdre O'Brien. He doesn't get a death sentence for this conviction because the jury wasn't unanimous in their decision. He receives a life sentence.
Okay.
A year later, in 1985, the trial court imposed non-capital sentences in Amie Hoffman's case for the other charges: kidnapping, aggravated sexual assault, and weapons possessions. And on January 11th, 1985, the judge sentenced him to 30 years in prison for the kidnapping conviction and said he couldn't be considered for parole for the first 15 years of that 30-year sentence. He also got 20 years for the aggravated sexual assault conviction, with 10 of those years being parole ineligible. And these sentences would run at the same time as the kidnapping and the sexual assault all ran at the same time.
Okay.
So between the two, the controlling term was the 30-year kidnapping sentence.
Right.
And the judge did this so that if later an appeals court threw out the death sentence, these kidnapping and sexual assault sentences wouldn't just evaporate. They would actually kick in, and they would run back to back, added on top of whatever new sentence he got for the murder itself, rather than at the same time.
Got it. I understand now.
And it's a good thing the judge did this, because in August of 1988, in the State versus Kotidich, the court affirmed the murder, kidnapping, and aggravated sexual assault convictions, but dropped the death sentence.
Why did they do that?
The defense had all of these things. He didn't get a fair trial. It was a lot of whining, right? So they dropped the death sentence.
Okay.
And he gets a penalty phase retrial in 1990 with a change of venue. And this time James is sentenced to life for the murder of Amie Hoffman. So they got him out of the same county, right? Where he killed these girls.
Sure.
For the sentencing part of the new, now that he doesn't get life in prison, they've got to sentence him again. So he gets another jury, but they still sentenced him to life for the murder of Amie Hoffman.
Okay. All right.
Today, at 78 years old, he remains incarcerated at the New Jersey State Prison in Trenton. He will be eligible for parole in 2038 when he will be 90. Now, here are some things I find very interesting, especially regarding Nancy Weber, the psychic.
Okay.
The two officers who visited her, it was all off the record. And they are on the record saying that what she did not lead them to James. It was just good old-fashioned police work that led them to James.
So they just kind of...
Well, it was all off the record, right?
Yeah. Okay.
But the things Nancy got right, James did have a brother who was a mechanic. He had lived most of his life in Morris County. He had moved to Florida. He had been in prison, and he had murdered while he was in prison in Florida. Yeah. But what about James's call into the police that he'd been stabbed?
Yeah, what was that all about?
Police only came to his house because he called them himself to say he'd been stabbed. He claimed a dark-haired woman ran him off the road and knifed him in the back, and James did, in fact, have a stab wound to his back. And police take him to the hospital where he spends the night, and everything starts to unravel for James. Mm-hmm. Because what the doctor tells police is that stab wound, they were self-inflicted.
Oh.
So when Nancy and her students were gathered together and asking for Amie and Deirdre's killer to get it in such a manner he can no longer give it, for him to feel his own pain, well, what compelled James to stab himself?
Yeah.
Because he never explains why, and he never spoke of the long-haired woman that he claimed attacked him. So did he stab himself to get the police, thinking he's getting the police off of his trail?
Right.
A trail that didn't really exist yet?
Yeah.
Or did Nancy and her students have something to do with it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Interesting.
There is an article in the March-April, I believe it is, 2010 issue of the Skeptical Inquirer that is written by Benjamin Radford, where he claims that psychic detectives like Nancy impress people by creating the illusion of accuracy and specificity. And in this article, Radford claims that Captain Moore and Sergeant Hughes had differing recollections when it came to what Nancy told them. So instead of he'd served time in Florida, which was what one officer remembered, it was that he had served time in the South, which was what the other officer remembered.
Still, Florida's in the South.
True. Instead of his name being Polish, which was what one of them remembered, the other one remembered that she had said he was of Eastern European descent.
Once again.
Still accurate.
Yeah.
Although each of the police officers remembers it differently, right?
Yeah.
And there are no official transcripts of what Nancy told the two officers, so there's no way to be certain who's accurate. Mm-hmm. He says psychics like Nancy Weber like to use a technique called retrofitting to make their predictions appear accurate.
What's that?
Once the answer of the specifics of the case are known, the psychic retroactively refines the original predictions.
But she didn't know anything about it.
Again, I say, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay.
One thing I do want to tell you about before we go, the O'Briens, Deirdre's family, opened a children's advocacy center in the wake of their grief. And according to her family, Deirdre was a fighter, and the advocacy center is to give a voice to the voiceless and other fighters. Because when a child has been abused or neglected, you don't want the very system that's trying to help them to re-traumatize them.
Right.
It's called Deirdre's House. It opened in April of 1996 and is designed to be a welcoming, child-friendly place where children can feel free to tell their story. Quote, "Every time our doorbell rings and we open that door, we are fulfilling Deirdre O'Brien's legacy," end quote.
Nice.
But the center is not the only way the O'Briens gave a voice to victims. They actually changed the law in New Jersey. Because of them, family members are now allowed to give victim impact statements in any courtroom in New Jersey. And Deirdre's House is still open and operating today. But Deirdre O'Brien's parents, James and Georgia O'Brien, they became the driving force behind two new major pieces of New Jersey victims' rights legislation.
Oh, really?
Born directly out of their frustration that families like theirs had, quote, few rights and little access to full participation in the criminal justice system, end quote.
Good for them.
So they feel like it didn't work the way it should have worked, right?
Right.
It's called the Crime Victims Bill of Rights, And James O'Brien worked alongside advocates to help pass New Jersey's Crime Victims' Bill of Rights, a statute that guarantees crime victims things like the right to be treated with dignity, to be informed about the criminal justice process, to give an impact statement before sentencing, to consult with prosecutors before plea deals are finalized. That's huge.
Yeah.
And to be notified of a defendant's release. And that statute alone wasn't considered enough protection. So the O'Briens went further and spearheaded a campaign for a state constitutional amendment enshrining victims' rights. It's Article 1, Paragraph 22 of the New Jersey Constitution. It's called the New Jersey Constitutional Amendment for Victims' Rights, and voters approved it in 1992, and fittingly, it took effect on December 5th, 1992, exactly 10 years to the day Deirdre was murdered.
Wow.
The amendment states that, quote, a victim of crime shall be treated with fairness, compassion, and respect by the criminal justice system, end quote.
Good.
Deirdre's father, James, went on to serve as a Morris County freeholder and later as a commissioner of the New Jersey Victims of Crime Compensation Board. And notably, despite everything his family went through, James O'Brien later became an outspoken opponent of the death penalty itself. He testified before the New Jersey legislature that the decade plus of trials and appeals in the Cota Ditch case took a, quote, horrendous toll, end quote, on his family, urging lawmakers to abolish capital punishment in favor of life without parole, advocacy that contributed to New Jersey's eventual abolition. They abolish the death penalty,
right,
which happened in 2007.
Okay.
But that's a lot to take in.
Yeah, no, that was great.
So Deirdre's family used their pain to do something wonderful and fantastic. And he is still rotting in prison. And there are people who do believe that Nancy Weber had something to do with this case. And there are people who believe that Nancy Weber had little to do with the case. But that is the story of the psychic and the serial killer. And that's all I have to say about that.
All right, here's my take on this. I don't know how I feel about not having the death penalty because, you know, when you have somebody serving life sentence like that, taxpayers are paying for this.
That's true.
You know?
That's true.
But then the other side of that is, listen, they're suffering and sitting in an 8x8 cell.
That is true as well. 23
hours a day, get out for an hour.
Right.
That's pretty much torture on them, which is well-deserved. So I kind of see both sides of it. The other thing I was thinking about, too, is that it would be kind of scary to be a psychic medium like that that's reporting on cases, because it seems like that if you know a lot of information about the murder, they're going to look at you like, how do you know all this stuff?
Yeah.
You're going to be a suspect.
Well, hopefully she had an alibi.
Yeah.
But they had used her before for other things. Yeah. And, of course, it was either Bill or the other officer who went to her first. Right. I think it was Bill Hughes who went and had like a cup of coffee with her and said, we got some stuff going on, and I was just wondering if you had any feelings about any of this kind of thing.
Yeah. Well.
So, I mean, it depends on who you believe, sure, whether or not. I think she had something to do with it. I think she was very good at sort of reading everything.
Right.
And she knew exactly where bodies were found. Stuff like that wasn't in the newspaper.
Right.
I mean, one of the examples that they gave was that one newspaper said that Amie had been sexually assaulted. Just one. Mm-hmm. And then the police were like, well, that was never in the paper. And she said, no, she was raped. She was raped. It was brutal.
Right.
So does that mean that she gleaned that from the newspaper and then like put it into her speech or what she thought she saw with the officers? Sure. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, why would you, be a psychic medium and make your living that way and then lie to the police about something?
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. I believe in that kind of thing. And again, a little bit of divine intervention. We had that last week with our case. I feel like there's a lot of that in this week in this case. So,
well, all I know is he's in jail.
Yes.
And he's probably going to die in jail.
or he's going to be eligible, not out on parole, just eligible
at 92.
At the age of 90. But this is a guy who's been, in shootouts with the police since he was 15, and so he just escalated. Every time it got worse and worse and worse.
Well, let's get off of that subject and let's escalate it to a bunch of boneheads with a little bless your heart.
Well, bless your heart.
All right, this first one I'm calling Forget Something.
Oh, gosh. Not their driver's license or something like that.
Well, 3 people accused of stealing checks in Worth County went to the wrong bank to cash them. Joyce Powell is a clerk at the Sylvester Banking Company and was at work when a coworker in the drive-thru window told her someone was trying to cash one of her personal checks.
Oh,
investigators say the 3 suspects had just broken into 4 homes in rural Worth County. The bank employee stalled the suspects, telling one of them presenting the check that he must show some sort of identification. Meanwhile, Powell checked with the authorities and learned someone had broken into her house. The suspects became suspicious and left, but 27-year-old Calvin Barfield had left his driver's license and Social Security card at the bank.
I was right. I didn't know he left his Social Security card, though.
Well,
who carries that with him?
I know. It didn't take authorities long to track him to a motel in Albany.
Oh, bless his heart.
I know. All right, number 2, read the fine print.
Okay.
A Charlotte, North Carolina man, having purchased a case of very rare, very expensive cigars, insured them against fire, among other things. Within a month, having smoked his entire stockpile of cigars, and without having made even his first premium payment on the policy, the man filed a claim against the insurance company.
I was going to say, fire insurance, you're going to light them up anyway. Okay.
In his claim, the man stated the cigars were lost, quote, in a series of small fires, unquote. The insurance company refused to pay, citing the obvious reason that the man had consumed the guitars. It could have been a guitar. No, cigars.
Cigars, guitars,
I
whatever.
got guitars on the mind. In the normal fashion, the man sued and won. In delivering the ruling, the judge agreed that the claim was frivolous, stated nevertheless that the man held a policy from the company in which it had warranted that the cigars were insurable, and also guaranteed that it would insure against fire without defining what considered to be unacceptable fire.
Like a lighter?
And was obligated to pay the claim.
Wow.
Rather to endure a lengthy and costly appeal process, the insurance company accepted the ruling and paid the man $15,000 for the rare cigars he lost in, quote, the fires.
Somebody got fired at the insurance company.
Well, wait a minute. After the man cashed the check, however, the company had him arrested on 24 counts of arson. With his own insurance claim and testimony from the previous case being used against him, the man was convicted of intentionally burning his insured property and sentenced to 24 months in jail and a $24,000 fine.
That was a quick turn of events, man.
You gotta love that.
That escalated quickly.
It did. All right, number 3, and finally. There's dumb, and then there's this guy.
Not even dumber.
No. Colorado Springs, a guy walked into a little corner store with a shotgun and demanded all the cash from the cash drawer. After the cashier put the cash in the bag, the robber saw a bottle of scotch that he wanted behind the counter on the shelf. He told the cashier to put it in the bag as well, but he refused and said, "Because I don't believe you're over 21.
Oh.
The robber said he was, but the clerk still refused to give it to him because he didn't believe him. At this point, the robber took his driver's license out of his wallet and gave it to the clerk. The clerk looked it over and agreed that the man was in fact over 21, and he put the scotch in the bag. But the robber then ran from the store with his loot. The cashier promptly called the police and gave him the name and address of the robber that he got off the license. They arrested the robber 2 hours later.
That's smart thinking on the clerk's part. Really smart thinking.
Oh, Lord.
That was good. I liked that.
Yeah, well, there's your bless
You're
your
not
hearts.
21. The fact that he argued with him. I am 21.
I know, and he had
show you my license.
He had a shotgun in his hand.
Good Lord.
I know.
Bless his heart.
Yeah.
Well, if you have a bless your heart or you know somebody's heart who needs blessing, all you got to do is go to hitchtohomicide.com, and when you get there, you'll find a pull-down menu where you can also suggest a case or tell us about your brush with true crime.
Please do.
That's my amazing husband out there.
And that's my beautiful bride in the booth.
Join us next time on Hitch to Homicide.
Bye, y'all.